Wednesday, April 17th. Wake up, wake up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. It is great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, subscribe, all those things. Hit notify, subscribe to both your channels, and not miss a thing as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft, which is 8 days away. Larry, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about a little move that the 49ers made just yesterday afternoon. We'll look around a couple of mocks, a few other kind of interesting headlines to share about the 49ers, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if this show then sort of developed into a Warriors post-mortem. You and I were up late till past midnight on our channels doing a little post-game last night, and it feels like it's the night that, you know, I don't want to say the dynasty died, but certainly the dynasty as we know it has come to an end.
Yep, it's all over, and it was very a clean break last night, right? I mean, the Kings put one on them. The Kings were playing terrible. All the indicators favored the Kings. Kings were playing bad. Warriors were playing good. There was no Malik Monk. There was no Kevin Huerter. Warriors play well on the road. Kings play poorly at home. All these different things set up for the Warriors to win, except that if you're really current with the Warriors, you saw that they had expended tons of energy to get to that game. Steph Curry was not Steph Curry, not playing well. Steve Kerr's feel for his rotations was pretty lacking all year, and lacking in this game as well. And
right, remember, I said we'd get to this segment. We don't have to do it right now.
Okay. I'm just saying there were so many indications that the Warriors were going to win, and yet the Warriors didn't just lose; they got drubbed, and it's on to what's next for the Warriors at some point.
Kind of stinks for our YouTube channel traffic late night. We were going to do a lot of Warrior post game together this year in the playoffs, and they didn't even technically reach the playoffs. Although anytime you were in a win or go home game, that feels like a playoff game to me, whether the NBA wants to acknowledge it as that or not. But a lot to talk about when we get there. But we start with the resurgence of one of the single greatest 49ers of all time, Larry Krueger. Trent Taylor is back.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Trent Taylor.
For those who don't remember.
Yeah. Who's Trent Taylor?
Trent Taylor is a 5'8", $180 wide receiver who in Kyle Shanahan's first year actually, gave you some reason to hope. It was a really bad team that wasn't built well, wasn't conceived very well. Kyle had a huge roster flush to go through. Trent Taylor, who was a 5th-round draft pick in 2017, had 43 catches on 60 targets in his rookie year. And, the dumbest among us were talking about how, he could be their Julian Edelman, which is the highest compliment you could give to an undersized Caucasian wide receiver at the time, Larry. And Trent Taylor, unfortunately, through injury and being replaced by he's better than you on the roster quickly as Kyle turned it all over, he fell out of favor with the 49ers, and after 3 years, he was in Cincinnati, where he did very little. He spent last year in Chicago, 0 catches on 2 targets. It might not be an exaggeration to say that Trent Taylor has caught more colds than footballs in the NFL over the last 4 or 5 years. But the Niners have brought him back. Clearly an element of familiarity there. Larry, he's a camp wide receiver with maybe potential to do something on this team with special teams as the hybrid kickoff rules have changed roster construction a little bit, because again, that's not just a special teams play anymore. It's more like an offensive stretch play being run out of some weird startup. So Trent Taylor is on the team. Will he play a live snap of 49er football this upcoming season?
Well, who knows? I mean, who knows if he'll even make the team? He's going to compete for a roster spot. I thought Dave Lombardi had an interesting tweet on this. He said the punt return has become an increasingly coverage-dominated play. A couple of years ago, we saw most of an NFL season go by without a single touchdown. Raising the floor is more important than ever. Teams can't afford muff punts. Trent Taylor had 0 muff punts in 85 tries with the Niners. So I did a whole video on this yesterday. This is about not fucking it up. This is about, Kyle Shanahan's nightmares after watching Ray McLeod and Darrell Luter in the Super Bowl. That was one of the biggest negative plays, and it cost him the Super Bowl. He's fearing more negative plays. Trent Taylor is here to avoid negative plays. And I'm okay with it. If, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if he makes the roster. Can he beat out Ronnie Bell? I don't know. Ronnie Bell's a better receiver than Trent Taylor.
Dude, if I'm Ronnie Bell this entire offseason, I'm getting whatever the simulate a punt version of a jugs machine is. And I'm catching punts all day. If I'm Ronnie Bell, I'm hiring 3 high school punters to just be punting me footballs all goddamn day long. And I'm running underneath footballs and just getting used to catching everything in a breadbasket.
You can win the game in all 3 phases. You can lose the game in all 3 phases. And I think the 49ers have decided that they don't want to lose the game because of their punt returns, because this is not a dynamic punt returner at all. If anything, it's the opposite. This is like a safety punt returner. I will say this. I did go to the local pro day last week. And one of the things that struck me was how many punt returners they had trying out. They had like about 7 or 8 different guys out there who were catching punts. And it seemed to be a big percentage of their workout was dedicated to this punt return tryout thing they were doing. So clearly they've been thinking about it. And the one thing about Trent Taylor, he's going to catch it. He's going to catch it. He's not going to fumble it. He's not going to muff it. He's not taking one back for a touchdown. He's not going to come away with a dynamic return, but he's also not going to fumble it. And I think that's where they're at. So I would say that Trent Taylor's chances of making the roster are incredibly high, just for the fact that they made this move to seek him out, to bring him back. So this is about the Super Bowl. This is about don't blow it. And if I was Ronnie Bell, I'd be very nervous right now, because you got Debo and Aiyuk and Juwan Jennings in front of you on the depth chart at wide receiver, in a depth chart where they typically carry 5. And now you've got Trent Taylor probably taking your punt return job from behind. So now it's like anybody, a lot of people are speculating Damon the Niners are going to go wide receiver in the draft, and they may. But not a lot of, if Aiyuk's coming back and, Debo and Jennings are there and Trent Taylor's your punt returner, what do you that means every other receiver is battling for maybe 1 or 2 spots. So it's going to be, I'll be very interested to see if, Danny Gray, Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, anybody they draft, anybody they sign after the draft. It's going to be a very difficult wide receiver core to make as it looks right now.
Welcome home, Trent Taylor. What can we say? Who knows what effect he will have on the team at all. You said an awful lot of punting, and getting underneath punts was the focus of the local pro day. I'm guessing most local pro days top out as maybe we can find a special teamer here for the most part. So I'm not surprised that was a majority of what you saw, but we'll see what role Trent Taylor plays. For his rookie season, there was a, wonder if they got something. And then unfortunately for Trent Taylor, it's been nothing but regression and less usage and less snaps and fewer targets since his rookie year. It's all been downhill for him.
But he's still in the league. I mean, It's not like he's flushed out of the league.
No, he was.
And when he was with the Niners, he had injuries.
Larry, he was in all 17 games for the Bears last year.
Right. But I mean, like with the Niners, he had back problems. He had foot injuries. I mean, he's not the most durable guy, but since he left the Niners, he's not had a recurrence of back or foot injuries. So maybe they're getting, some people say, oh, it's a camp body. No. This is a bigger deal than that. This is Kyle Shanahan stating that, you know what? It's not about being dynamic as a punt returner. It's about being safe. And we're tired of, potentially, the Ray McLeod, gave you a little bit of excitement and a little bit of upside, but did he ever take one back? No. So I think they're trade. It sounds to me, Damon, like they're trading big playability for, punt catching certainty. And we'll see. We'll see what it looks like this summer. There'll be a competition, and either Ronnie Bell will win it, or somebody who we don't know will win it, or Trent Taylor will. My guess and my bet, my money would be on Trent Taylor.
To borrow a line from Jim Harbaugh, maybe Shanahan considers him a trusted agent. He just familiar, he trusts him, and that probably more than anything else, certainly not, physical, impressive frame brings him back to the 49ers, but some trustworthy guy who understands what we're trying to do around here. So we'll see what happens with Trent Taylor back on the team, 1-year deal. And I think it's important to also notice that, even though he's back in the room, he's a 7-year NFL vet. A Trent Taylor move doesn't preclude the 49ers. It doesn't tip the cap about what they're about to do with Brandon Aiyuk or what they could possibly do with an early or any pick in the upcoming NFL draft. And that brings us to Peter Schrager's mock draft, Larry. I think you and I both regard Peter Schrager as a very plugged-in guy who doesn't just talk out of the side of his mouth to get clicks. As a matter of fact, he hasn't put out, 25 mock drafts. He's put out his first mock draft after talking with everybody in the NFL that he's got in his Rolodex, and that's a considerable Rolodex. And, he puts a little skin in that game. He really wants this thing to be right and accurate. We'll see how Peter Schrager does, but he's the first guy to have the 49ers with the 31st overall pick. He does not have them making a trade in the first round. He's got other trades baked into his first round. Georgia wide receiver Ladd McConkey, who you and I have talked about sort of in passing. We haven't really focused on him at all. McConkey's the first a first rounder, writes Peter Schrager. Yeah, above guys like Tony Franklin and Keon Coleman, perhaps. I've spoke to a lot of people over the past few months, and I'm not sure there is a single prospect who is as universally liked and respected as Ladd McConkey. Tough, smart, selfless. San Francisco feels like the perfect home. And that's the write-up that Peter Schrager attached to the pick in the mock draft. He is a 6-foot, 185-pound wide receiver who ran 4.39, so he can move, 1.52 10-yard split. So he's quick in a short amount of space. And after his redshirt season, he was named SEC All-Freshman Team. After his second season, he was second-team All-SEC. Last year, he won the Werfel Trophy for community service. He was a finalist for the Campbell Trophy, which is like the academic Heisman Trophy. He was named to the All-State Good Works team. So good guy, big brain, smart guy. And we know that Kyle really values all of that. And apparently, if you just say, hey, kid, go out there on a football field and impress me with your route tree, apparently he runs the fuck out of a route tree, Larry. Like, that's the key to his entire game. Cuts on a dime, quick stops, quick twitch player. Ladd McConkey at 31. Kruger, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm not a big Peter Schrager fan. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think he's tied in because of his dad. And
well, he knows people. I mean, a lot of people know him and talk.
Yeah, but I'm just saying he doesn't. I don't think he really knows. He's not watching film. That he's just regurgitating what somebody else told him. And this is lying season, and people lie to people like Peter Schrager. So I would say I don't put a lot into it, but he is McConkey is a good route runner. I think he's a slot receiver. He's a smallish slot receiver who ran a great 40 time and doesn't have any real production to show for it. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns all year. 2, as in you and me. 1, 2. So that's not a lot. I mean, the LSU kid,
The year before, he led Georgia in touchdown receptions.
okay, but I'm just saying he's to me, I got durability concerns there, and I don't think this is a guy that replaces Aiyuk. This could be a guy that replaces Jennings, or a guy who complements Jennings. You know, Jennings is the big slot. This guy could be the small slot, but it doesn't make any sense at all. So to me, you know, you're gonna you need a center, a guard, and a tackle on your offensive line. You need a defensive tackle, probably another defensive end, a linebacker, 2 safeties, and a number 1 corner on defense alone. You have no tight end to speak of after Kittle, and you're going to go to a smallish slot receiver in the first round to share the slot receiver duties with Juwan Jennings, who's your big slot.
Here's the thing, Larry.
Talk about low value.
Right.
Talk about low impact. I mean, I like Ladd McConkey in like the 3rd round.
I like Ladd McConkey. I don't like him at 31.
I mean, it's so low end. It's like it would be the equivalent of like, you know, your wife coming home and saying, "Hey, I just ordered plantation shutters," and you're like, "Great, but honey, you know, guess what? You know, we don't have a roof to our house. We need a roof to our house." You know, it's like, but you're gonna love these plantation shutters. I don't care about the shutters. We don't have a roof, and it could rain next week, and then the water's going to come in. So, I mean, that's the Niners. They lack a roof, and Ladd McConkey is like a nice little upgrade to, like, you know, it's like lighting the path from the sidewalk to your front door. It's like it's so low priority,
right,
that it makes no sense.
Right. You need
no
more
sense
square footage, not French doors.
Yeah. Oh, guess what? We changed out our gold doorknobs for, crushed silver or whatever. So what? You know, we have no windows on our house. You know, it's such a extra item that do I think that there are people that may go for Ladd McConkey in the 1st round? Sure. But man, I mean, the 49ers badly need help where it counts the most, you know, on the line of scrimmage. You're going to go Ladd McConkey, you know, and it's like every pass and to make it even more idiocy, you're about to, if you believe the reports, pay Brandon Aiyuk close to Justin Jefferson kind of money, and you already have $28 million a year devoted to Debo, and you just signed Jennings, and you're going to bring it, and you have Kittle, and you have McCaffrey, and you're going to bring in another kind of weapon that you're going to throw to instead of throwing it to your money guys.
Right.
I don't think so.
By the way, one of the telltale signs of aging in my life has been an appreciation of a well-placed brushed steel doorknob. Part of the aging process in a man's life is the appreciation of the appliances and accoutrement around a house. Like I never in my, you know, in any part of my childhood, my teenage years, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, until I bought a house, I never noticed what your faucet was made of. I never really took stock of your kitchen cabinets or appliances in my life. You buy a home, you grow up a little, all of a sudden you start looking at that stuff like it's a stripper coming out on the stage. You're like, oh, what is that? A Sub-Zero? That's a nice refrigerator you got there.
Is that a Wolf Range?
Yeah. Whoa.
Is that a Viking? You got a Viking 6-burner?
Yeah.
What the hell, man? Yeah.
Friedman's?
This guy's got a Sub-Zero and stainless steel appliances across the board. He's got a dishwasher from that's from France. I mean, it's like, who cares?
Well,
yeah,
I didn't
care
care
more. I guess your wife. You care if your wife cares.
You care if your wife cares. That is how life works. Absolutely. Last note on McConkey, a little write up by Lance Zerline, who said McConkey has a route plan that allows him to uncork at all three levels. His pace and rhythm make cornerbacks more reactive than proactive. He has the footwork and body control to snap off crisp breaks and open windows for his quarterback. He can manipulate coverage with an advanced feel for leverage and has enough top-end speed to get past corners who are non-believers. In other words, underestimate the white boy's speed at your own risk. He
2 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, he might not be sudden enough to beat press and will need to improve enough play and strength and finish to contest catches against tight man. In other words, here's a really good guy in space. You put a big body on him, he's in a little bit of trouble. So I like Ladd McConkey. I don't like him 31 to the 49ers, and I don't think that Peter Schrager got that one right. And for all the reasons that you just brought up, it doesn't feel like the fit that the 49ers take a step closer to winning a Super Bowl if they add it.
You know who the people should be worried about him going to? It's Kansas City. Because this guy does have sticky fingers, and this guy, they already have Mahomes, and they already have Kelsey, and they,
he could be Mahomes' Edelman.
Yeah, I mean, he could be, and they have few, I guess I would argue they have fewer needs, though. If you're a Chiefs fan, you'd probably push back and say, hey, they got needs at offensive tackle. They've got several needs that we're not thinking of. But, you take a sticky hands, good route runner and throw him in there with Kelsey and Mahomes and whatever Kansas City's got. And Kansas City looks like a scary team. But for the 49ers, I don't see it. I really don't. In fact, one of the, stories that came out in the last day or two is that the 49ers were trying to meet with the BYU kid, Kingsley Sumatia, whatever.
Yeah.
We're both butchering his name, but he's supposedly a fast riser, and they're meeting with Sione Vaki and that guy today. There's also a report out, Jordan Schultz, the great Jordan Schultz, who's pretty good. He says Illinois defensive tackle Johnny Newton, who's projected to be a late first-round pick, just wrapped up an impressive pro day showcasing elite explosion and power after a Jones fracture that he's fully healed from. He says, I'm told the following teams were in attendance, among others, Bills, Cowboys, Niners, and Jets. And when I asked Baldy, I said, Baldy, Niners always go D-tackle. And we talk about all these things, but they go D-line, D-line, D-line. I said, who's your favorite interior D-lineman? I mean, I couldn't even get the words out. And he's like, Johnny Newton, Illinois. And Johnny Newton's about 6'2", about 310. And 52 tackles this year, 8.5 for loss, 7.5 sacks, career high.
Just a bowling ball.
Well, no, he's not Jerry Ball, but I mean, he's not 6'5". But I mean, if you watch him, the guy's got 18 sacks in his career over 4 seasons. And the Niners obviously just lost Eric Armstead. Now they traded for Malik Collins. They signed Jordan Elliott, but not many people expect the Niners to address the defensive line at some point during the draft, possibly even in the first round. I'm a big fan of Michael Hall from Ohio State. That would be my guy. But Johnny Newton is Lance Zerline compares Newton to Javon Hargrave. He wrote in the scouting report, active interior defender with the potential to build on his disruptive production in college. Newton's size and length don't stand out, but he has shown a consistent ability to gain extension and set edges against bigger opponents. Newton is clever in setting up blockers and then beating them with sudden hand usage and foot quickness as both a run defender and a pass rusher. So in a lot of ways, Michael Hall and Johnny Newton are very similar. These guys are, compact and powerful and explosive and quick, and they're interior rushers. And I could see
and they produced against real offensive lines in college.
Yeah, Newton in the Big Ten, both guys in the Big Ten. So
yeah,
I mean, but Michael Hall is a special player too, and he ran 4.76 at 299 pounds. If you said to me, make your prediction on what the Niners would do at 31, I would guess if Johnny Newton or Michael Hall were there. I mean, Michael Hall's probably going to be there. Johnny Newton may or may not be there, but I think those are the two guys they would hone in on, and try to do the offensive tackle or offensive line thing a little bit later. But who knows? I mean, there could be any number of. A lot of people expect the Niners to go O-line early. I don't know if there will be a tackle there that fits their needs. Do you want the 7th best tackle, or do you want the best, or what you think is the best defensive tackle? So, we'll see as we get close on the 25th. But if I'm betting Johnny Newton or Michael Hall at 31.
I don't really like shows where you just got two hosts blowing each other. Oh, I agree with you.
You can say that again.
Great point, Larry.
Second, I'll second that notion. Yeah.
You have talked me.
Welcome to the glad handing show.
You've talked me into Zack Frasier. Awesome. When you go and look at film, looking at center film isn't that much fun. Let's be honest. You want to watch D-backs, you want to watch wide receivers, you want to watch running backs, guys who touch the ball making plays. No one in a football game touches the ball more than a center. And that to me, like if he's there at 31, you run to the podium with that name. I don't think he's there at 31. Schrager's mock has him off the board to the Lions, just 2 picks before, 29 to the Lions. I would love to see Zack Frasier. And if you're talking about what draft pick can you select whose fingerprints will be more on the 2024 NFL season for the 49ers at any position, it's Zack Frasier.
Yeah, I mean, he's a monster. I mean, here's the thing. I just watched the Field Yates, Mel Kiper deal the other day, their 3-round mock draft, and they use a phrase clean prospect a couple times. And it's obviously they're just regurgitating things they're hearing from NFL people, but that is a term that NFL people will use. And Frasier is a clean prospect in that he was dominant on tape. He can play guard or center. The guy loves to practice, loves to play. 4.0 GPA, wrestling background, tough as nails. What's left? I mean, he's really, really good. To me, he's somebody in one of the mocks said, that the Lions will grab him. And that would be so apropos. Why? Because the Lions are right now, the Lions general manager is the hottest thing going. He got Laporta, Brian Branch, the Georgia running back who's super fast. They got all they're hitting home runs. They're not worried about value. They're not worried about the board. They're just finding great players and then drafting them where they can get them. And they're not worried about, oh, you know what? If we take Jahmyr Gibbs here, it's not great value. And who cares? The guy's fucking great. Draft great players. That's the game. And the Lions right now, and I forget the general manager of the Lions name, but he's hot. Brad something. He's hot right now. And they, according to what I'm reading, the Lions may want Frasier.
Brad
Holmes. Yeah. Brad Holmes. Now, Brad Holmes was in LA with Charlie Army and Les Snead and all those guys. He was part of that group that brought in Aaron Donald, and now he went to Detroit and he's got, a head coach that he gets along with, and they got it going right now. And I've heard that they're interested in Frasier. And that, could you imagine? They have Frank Ragnow, they have Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker. Could you imagine if they added an all-world player like Frasier and played him at guard? I mean, just a monster offensive line. That's where football starts. Football starts with your offensive line. Your offensive line is not reliant upon anybody else to make them better. Your quarterback is, your running back is, your receivers are. Everybody's reliant on another group of people except for your O-line. So if you can build just an awesome kick-ass O-line like Detroit has, you have the foundation, a rock solid foundation to beat anybody on any Sunday, and they do. And if they add to it with Frasier, watch the hell out. So I think the Niners need to go start there.
I think that's what made the 49ers season last year, kind of impressive when you think about it and you look back at it and you take the anger out of losing the Super Bowl out of the equation and you just look at what happened. The 49ers went to overtime in the Super Bowl with the best team in football over the last 5 years, with an offensive line that I think is not inaccurately described as good, but they're not great. Trent Williams is great. Aaron Banks could be great. The rest of that offensive line was just okay. And the 49ers took a just okay offensive line further than most just okay offensive lines ever go. That's a testament to, the coach, the GM, the defense that played very well at times, and the ridiculous amount of offensive skill positions that you put around a quarterback who figured it out quickly. Even as he was under duress due to a okay offensive line. So, you add a guy like Zack Frasier, you get better, and you get better at, what's the normal amount of snaps played for an offensive center? How many snaps?
All of them.
Yeah.
They play all the snaps.
700, 800. How many offensive plays does a team run in a season? So we're talking about somebody who's out there for 900 fucking plays. You know what I mean? So, how long are you going to wait before you decide to,
not get your ass kicked by Chris Jones? I mean, how, when are you going to start blocking Chris Jones? When are you going to start taking on? I mean, the Detroit Lions just added DJ Reader. You sure as hell better did you see what DJ Reader did to Jake Brendel last year? He, ragged him around. I mean, it was embarrassing. It looked like FCS film, and it was awful. So do you want more of that? Then stay with Brendel. If not, you may want to upgrade at center. And with DJ Reader on maybe one of the premier, who's the premier team in the NFC that stands between you and the Super Bowl? Because now you got to think about getting to the Super Bowl because Detroit's getting, it's Detroit. Detroit is the team that's building up. Detroit is the bully that's being built. And they've got now DJ Reader and Aiden Hutchinson on their defensive line. You better be able to counter those guys. So I love the idea of Frasier. Every mock that I do starts with Frasier at 31. And then I'm hoping that, Michael Hall is there in the second round. And that's how I would start my draft. Up front, big boys, Michael, Zack Frasier, and then Michael Hall. And if I can't get Michael Hall, I'll go in a different direction. But I think Zack Frasier is where I would start. And by the way, T-Dub here in the chat, he's like, Larry's a hater. He's obviously a big Ladd McConkey fan. Then he goes, Larry's a hater. How many the year before, Larry? And then he's like, he was hurt. And then T-Dub was like, hurt all season. How many career touchdowns? That's my point, T-Dub, is that Ladd McConkey is going to be hurt because Ladd McConkey is a small-bodied guy who's going to take hits and get hurt. That's like the main reason I wouldn't draft him is because he gets hurt and he's likely to be hurt. I mean, we go into these locker rooms, we see these guys. Ladd McConkey is not the same body type as Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel. You got to be a physical guy in the NFL to stay healthy. A slight receiver on a loaded Georgia team that, they've got 27,000 weapons and all kinds of depth. Yeah, I mean, he runs a good 40 time and suddenly you're taking him in the first round. The guy is a major liability injury-wise. That's why I wouldn't take him at 31.
By the way, I got a merch idea for us for the next NFL draft because we can't order these and get them ready to ship by next Thursday. T-shirt that says "Wake up, draft clean." Larry, I think we got a merch idea. Wake up, draft clean. Welcome to Wake Up once again. You're just joining us, Damon and Larry. Like and subscribe, hit notify, all those good things. Make sure you're subscribed to both channels, please. Since we've been talking about wide receiver, here's a little Brandon Aiyuk talking to Brock Purdy, a story relayed to Cam Inman from Brock Purdy. And he's talking about Brandon Aiyuk. He says that the two of them spoke about, this offseason, what Aiyuk's going through. And all I'm going to tell you here is I don't know what Brandon Aiyuk said to Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy, Larry, is already speaking about Brandon Aiyuk in the past tense.
I know.
Okay. He says, I just told him, this is a quote from Brock, I just told him I'll always have his back and support him in whatever he does, Purdy said via Cam Inman of the Bay Area News Group. Bang. I want the best for him. It's a business thing, so for me to say anything about that, that's out of my pay grade. He and I talk through things, and I hear him out. At the end of the day, what he's done for me, giving me an opportunity to come in and throw him the ball, I'll always be thankful for that. Sounds like he's talking about, a high school girlfriend that he really liked, but just, didn't work out. They went their seperate ways. She left me.
Will you go to the teacher? Will you? Yeah. Will you go to the teacher and tell him to, put in a good word for me? You know what? I can't get involved in that. It's above my pay grade. But I'll always appreciate what you've done for me. I mean, if you came to me and said, you know what, Lair? I don't know. Could you make a comment to this program director for me? And, I say, it's above my pay grade and this and that. But Damon, I'll always appreciate what you've done for me. That
Larry,
sounds like we're parting ways.
Larry,
that sounds like I'm not going to see you in a while.
After I got laid off in radio, you really, really helped me here on YouTube launch, gain audience, share your audience and your channel's growth with me. And I just want you to know that I'm always going to be very thankful for the opportunity you gave me.
Are you guys moving to Guam?
See ya.
It reeks of like, I'm never going to see you again.
Yeah.
So when I read that quote earlier in a stream to somebody, and we were laughing about that because there are people that are professionally dishonest, right? Like they're really good at it. And then there's people that are just such good people that they really can't be dishonest. And like John Lynch is one of those people, I think. And that's why I read last year at the Combine when he's like, Trey Lance needs to play. And there's no question he needs to play. And that's the issue because we've got a team that's ready to win now. It's like he was saying to everybody in March, we are trading Trey Lance, but not in so many words. And it was weird. It was like I was one of the only people that could hear him saying they're going to trade Trey Lance. Everybody else is like, he's not saying that. He's not saying that. It's like, if Trey Lance needs to play and you don't have a quarterback and he's a quarterback, there is no problem. But when you say Trey Lance needs to play and that's the problem, that means that you don't think he's ready to play.
Right. The only way to solve that problem is to put him in a different situation because what he needs, we don't have.
Right. Trey Lance needs to play. And that's the issue because we got a team that's ready to roll. In other words, Trey ain't ready to roll. And that's our professional evaluation. And we're not going to say it because we're trying to trade him, but we're going to kind of reference it. Well, in this situation, it's almost like people say, well, what do you expect Brock to say? He could have said, hey, you know what? Brandon Aiyuk means everything to me. He is my security blanket going across the middle. He is my number one receiver. I absolutely am going to tell Shanahan and Lynch that we need this guy. I need this guy. And let's, find common ground and get this done. But he didn't say that.
That's my boy. Can't live
my guy
without him.
He's my guy. I got to have him. Got to have him. He didn't say that. He's like, I'll always, what was the last sentence? I'll always
Larry.
appreciate what he's done for me or something like that.
Larry, it's the name of my Broke Up With My Girlfriend album. It's called I'll Always Be Thankful for That. That's the first single. The first single on my big breakup album. I'll always be thankful for that.
I'm Casey Kasem, and now, we're going to do a love song, a dedication from Damon Bruce to his girl. I'll always be thankful for that.
Joji's saying that I've become a superstar in Japan, bigger than Ichiro, bigger than Shohei. It was only a matter of time. Again, I knew when I launched with the Godzilla logo, Japan was clearly a future target market. We all knew that.
So think about that for a second. That to me, okay, so where are we on the Aiyuk?
Here's where I officially am. Shit or get off the pot. Like that's the way
I know you're impatient. You're impatient. You just want the story to you want to get to chapter 10 and we're in chapter 7.
I'm tired
but I'm just saying, what can we
interpreting? I'm tired of the interpretation of Brandon Aiyuk's in Instagram or interpreting.
Well, yeah. That's tired.
What tense Brock Purdy is speaking about him in. I'm tired of all the interpretation.
But here's the thing. What's real, what's fake? Brock's not a liar.
No.
Brock wouldn't be talking like that. So to me, I think what we're looking at is we're looking at a team that's getting ready to pay their quarterback a ton, a receiver market that's loaded every year for the last 3. There's hardly any good free agents available, but there's still guys like Tyler Boyd out there. So that you still have free agents at wide receiver that are available, and you still have guys in the draft. They're not Aiyuk. I get it.
Larry, they just signed Trent Taylor. They're good.
But it just feels like Aiyuk, and somebody said this, and I forget if it was like Ian Rappaport or who it was, that Aiyuk cares more about making the money he wants to make than he cares about that money coming from the Niners.
Yeah.
Like he wants his money, whether it comes from the Niners, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Raiders. He doesn't care. He'd rather be a Niner. And if all things work out, and I heard Schefter talking about this, if he'd like to be a Niner and have it all, right? Because the Niners are a winning team, but he wants his money.
Right.
Things. You know what? If you want your money so bad, get ready to go to New England.
Right. All things being equal, I think he's returning to the 49ers for this. Team X is offering you $30 million. 49ers are offering you $30 million. He's coming back to the 49ers before he's moving on to Team X.
He's from Rockland.
You know who you said, I don't think Brock Purdy can lie. I don't think Brandon Aiyuk can lie either. I mean, he has come out from day one of all of this and said the X marks the spot of this whole thing is the paycheck. I don't begrudge him that.
Most receivers, Damon, only get one big contract.
This is it. This is the best shot in Brandon Aiyuk's life at the biggest paycheck he will ever bring home. It's right here. It's this moment. This is the moment that determines whether Brandon Aiyuk's great grandchildren are millionaires or not.
He's got to get the bag.
Yeah.
He still would rather win and get the bag. But I think my read on it is that he's asked for a ton. He also is waiting for guys to make even more and ask for more. He's an all-pro receiver, and he wants to wait. According to Rappaport, he wanted to wait until Justin Jefferson and all these contracts get done, which basically means I want to wait till other guys are making a shit ton so I can ask for what I want. And there's teams out there with cap room to pay him. Washington can pay him. I'll tell you this right now. If Washington, I think he's traded. I really do. If Washington offered their two high second round picks and Jahan Dotson, I'm moving Brandon Aiyuk.
Oh, and I like Dotson.
I like Dotson too, but he has not been good the first 2 years. He's been just okay. Small. He's got great ball skills, but he's great at Penn State.
Yeah.
But he was not drafted by Adam Peters, right? He was drafted by the last GM. So you know the way that works. When a new GM comes in, there's like, well, he ain't my guy. So Aiyuk is their guy, and they're going to have Drake May or Jaden Daniels, and they're going to want not a rookie receiver. They're going to want an established big-time receiver. And if you looked at all those free agents they signed, they're in a rush to get it done now and become an entity because Bob Myers is trying to get them a stadium. So they need to, they're in a sprint mode to get relevant, get to the playoffs, make an impact, get butts in the seats, get a new stadium built,
right?
Get out of FedEx Field. That's their plan.
They're looking to bring an entire franchise back to life. The Commanders have essentially been dead the last 25 years.
Totally true. And it's an iconic brand. So they know there's all kinds of Redskin Commander fans in that region. You've been there. It's a hot, the Commanders are a dormant, iconic brand.
Larry, so
they are an iconic brand.
I grew up on the East Coast. Okay. Grew up there. The Redskins in my childhood were so much bigger than the Giants, the Jets,
the Bullets, the Orioles. They were the thing there.
The Redskins were a gargantuan brand to the NFL, and it's been so long. They've been dormant for so long. Everyone's kind of forgotten about them.
And Bob Myers was brought in to get out of FedEx Field and to build them to get into a major, awesome, killer facility. And the only way they can do that is to get momentum and get butts in the seats. So they're not on like a 5-year plan. They're on like a we got to win now plan. And so Brandon Aiyuk fits the Commanders' plan. And if I'm the Niners and they are offering, I think it's like 36 and 40, I'd take 36 and 40 and Jahan Dotson for Brandon Aiyuk and get down the road. And then guess what you do? You go, you've got 31, 36 and 40. Maybe you go Zack Frasier, Michael Hall, and Xavier Legette. Or, a receiver to replace those two guys and a couple linemen, hopefully including Frasier. And now,
did you see that Washington brought in Jaden McDaniels, Drake May, and JJ McCarthy all together same day for their 30 visit?
No, but that's always interesting. Well, you want to stand them next to each other and see. If you bring them all in differently, you don't know who's the bigger guy, who's the alpha, Sometimes you want to see how they.
Do you seriously think like Bob Myers is sitting there going, "All right, boys, out of your sneakers, everybody go back to back. I want to see back to backs on everybody. Let's see who's taller here."
No, but it's kind of like in a room full of alphas, who's the true alpha,
right?
You know what I mean? And sometimes that shows itself if you bring guys in together. If you bring everybody in independently, then it's like today's Jaden Daniels day, tomorrow's Drake May day. If you bring them in together. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure of the mindset of that. I'm sure there is a ideology there, but I'm just saying Aiyuk to the Commanders, who have tons of cap room and 5 picks inside the top 50, where they could trade a couple of second-round picks and not miss them because they got 2 in the 3rd and they got all kinds of picks and they just signed about 15 free agents. I think it makes perfect sense. And when I hear Purdy talking in past tense, that tells me that he knows that Brandon Aiyuk's asked for a ton. The Niners aren't going to give it to him. And it's just it's not a matter of, is he, where he's going. It's not a matter of if he's going. It's just where he's going. And that's kind of how I see it. And I love Brandon Aiyuk. And I'd love to see him be here, but you can't pay everybody. And if you ask me, it's the receivers are the easiest guys to replace. I mean, if he was Jerry Rice, I wouldn't let him go anywhere. But he's not Jerry Rice. The guy caught 3 balls in the Super Bowl.
Brandon Aiyuk is a very good wide receiver. Not Jerry Rice is correct.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to bring it up or not, Larry. Go to the bottom of the chat and then scroll back up to the Sentinels Football Channel, who brings up something that I've never even thought of. But nope, that's not it. It's the one before that, I'm guessing, if you're going chronologically. The Sentinels Football Channel writes, the NFL should adjust the team cap based on
he's active in here. That's not it either.
No, I guess you got to go to another one. I'll read it to you. It's at 9:33. So go to the 9:33 portion of the timeline's time.
Oh, okay.
The NFL should allow a team cap. Here it is. The NFL should adjust the team cap based on the cost of living for players on that team. Many players lose money on the cost of living and taxes in the Bay Area.
That's interesting.
So let's talk about what the design of the salary cap really is. The design of the salary cap is to give everybody the same engine which to run the race with. You know, you all got to use the same car parts to build your car. You all have the well, actually, it's not quite that. It's you all have the same budget to build the car like this. So you all have the same amount of money to spend on your race car. However you allocate that money is up to you, and that's the differences in the franchises. But you all start with the same budget, but they don't. I actually think I've never even thought of that until I just read it here from the Sentinels football channel. That to me is not an abstract, out of the question, stupid, ridiculous idea. It actually makes a lot of sense. You know,
cost of living. Yeah. I mean, if somebody hires you to go work in Kansas City, hey, you're going to do afternoon drive in Kansas City. What are you offering? We're going to offer you $150. Okay.
Right. Well, I was making seems a little, I'm not going to do that.
Seems a little low. But then somebody says, hey, I'm going to offer you afternoon drive in an entity that's in Midtown Manhattan, $150. You got to be kidding me. I can't do anything in Midtown Manhattan for $150. I need $350. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some credence to what the Sentinel football channel's comment is here. I kind of agree with them.
Well, if the whole thing is you're looking for equality, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. Teams in Florida and Texas have a unique advantage in their tax-free states that aren't found in other NFL cities. And if your whole thing is all of these things work equally, I think that it's not a bad idea. I mean, it really isn't. It really isn't. I also think that the NFL should just say, hey, quarterbacks no longer count against the salary cap. And that would solve your whole problem right there, too.
I think here's my thought on it. I mean, here's another one, too. Like, I would want a whole lot more money to go play for the Giants or the Jets on that disaster turf at MetLife, as opposed to playing at Levi's on a grass field that's, perfectly manicured.
I've seen plenty of injuries there too, but I mean, I don't know if the 49ers are the best team as an example to use if you won't get hurt playing for these guys because the injuries. But I hear you. I totally hear you. There are circumstances which dictate how different this is all going to go. And yeah, I mean, I almost think that there's a media pain in the ass tax that should pay you a little bit more in New York, Chicago, Philadelphia,
Here's one that I think is, I'd adopt it in baseball and football and maybe even basketball. And I think it's tied into something that's real, which is the first game of any sport is the competition game as far as development of talent. So how about this? If you have a player that you drafted, he doesn't count against the cap as much as the player that you signed, so that you can avoid the Wayne Huizinga syndrome of a guy hitting the market, or kind of like what the Commanders are doing right now. The Commanders just went and bought everybody. Those guys should count more against the cap than the team that drafts and develops those players. Why? Because there's a value to the relationship that fans have with the players. And that, to me, you should encourage that and incentivize that. If the Niners can draft all these good players, then they should count less against the cap than if you come into the league and you're a billionaire and you're like, I'm just going to sign all these free agents.
I think and it also increases continuity, which gives you a better product to sell, and
merchandise, right? Because who's going to buy a jersey of somebody they don't know?
What's the number one lesson in sports this year? Familiarity matters. It's why the WNBA draft was watched by more than 6 people. It's why the NCAA women's tournament became more popular this year in terms of ratings than the men's NCAA tournament. It's because
for the first time ever.
There was a recognizable Caitlin Clark that everyone knew. There isn't a person in America who doesn't know who she is.
She has a brand. She has an identifiable brand.
Guard at Duke. No one can. No one can, because it's a new guy every 28 games. So familiarity increases interest, business, and buy-in. And familiarity, that's what it does for the fans. Familiarity for the teams increases continuity, which gives you a better brand of football, full stop. So, yes, the NFL should be incentivized to reward teams for drafting well and being able to retain those players. By the way, Joe Lacob went to the NBA's competition committee and basically said, fuck all you guys. Like, I'm doing this the right way, and you are inventing luxury taxes to fuck the Warriors over for wanting to keep all the players we drafted. You sons of bitches. And oh, by the way, look at how much money I've made for this league. The 10 highest rated games you got, my man Steph Curry standing on the midcourt in all of them. You know what I mean?
And not only that, the new CBA, you could make a very compelling argument, was designed to hurt the Warriors.
Oh, without a doubt it was. It might as well be called the second layer threshold, might as well be called the Joe Lacob fuck you clause.
Well, and also, what was Joe doing? He was buying second-round picks, and they basically eliminated that. And we
don't want you to want to minimize if you do, Joe.
Their team. I mean, and there's a lot of franchises in sports that are hurting. I just watched the Giants play the Marlins. They did a panoramic of the stadium. What the fuck? Where are all the people? I mean, the worst day at Oracle for the boring Giants last year was like 10 times the crowd of what I saw in April of a Marlins Giants game. So it's like, where's the crowd? Where was the crowd in Tampa? Where was the crowd in Miami? It's like, there's a lot of, and the NBA, I don't know which teams, because they don't show the crowds a lot, but I remember going to the Cap Center and watching the Warriors. They were just a absolute ghost town. And I guarantee you there's probably some NBA cities where there's just not very good momentum. Well,
the NBA just set its all-time attendance record this last year. So I don't know if it's the best time for you to be making that point. I just read that story this morning.
But I mean, that's on the heels of teams like the Warriors and some of the best teams just selling out constantly. There's some have-nots that have some empty seats. And my point is just that you should incentivize teams to have branding and a relationship between the fans and the players. And if they don't have that relationship, they're not going to buy jerseys. They're not going to be as connected. So to me, that would be a no-brainer. Right now, it's like, it's they don't have those incentives created, and it's the team that a team like Washington, the new owner comes in, they buy all these players, they got the exact same cap figure as a team that like Green Bay that may draft and develop and in kind of a far more healthy way of building their franchise. So I don't know. These are intricacies to the cap, but I think they're important if you really take a step back and analyze it.
Outside the echo chamber says many players don't want to be stuck where they're drafted. I don't think a lot of players view good situations as I'm stuck in it. And say what you want about this town is unsexy. Sometimes unsexy towns allow you to have more square footage than you could ever believe in. And you live an insulated life anyways.
And we're not saying that there's no free agency. We're not saying ban free agency. We're just saying give teams that draft and develop incentives. If a player wants to bail, he wants to bail. But if a team says, "Hey, look, take a good player the Niners have drafted, let's say Talanoa Hufanga. We want to keep Talanoa Hufanga." Well, if Talanoa Hufanga costs 75% of his salary against the cap because you drafted and developed him, he can still leave in free agency, but the teams are incentivized to keep those guys because they cost less against the cap. The players still have the freedom to bolt. It's more of a team incentive. So I'm not sitting here advocating the abolishment of free agency. We're not that, we're not that crazy. I mean, free agency is here to stay.
Of
And
course.
players should have a choice. But you could incentivize teams. Hey, San Francisco Giants, you developed Patrick Bailey. Well, you don't, Patrick Bailey's salary only counts 75% against the cap because you drafted and developed him. Well, guess what? You're more likely to stay with Patrick Bailey. The Giants just traded Joey Bart.
Well, there's no cap.
And they went to Tom Murphy.
But I hear you. I hear the point.
But let's just say there was a cap in baseball. Hey, do you want Tom Murphy or do you want Joey Bart? Well, Tom Murphy, I'm dollar for dollar. Joey Bart, I'm only paying, 75 cents on the dollar. I'll stay with Joey Bart. I think that's that kind of incentivizing creates better relationships and longer term relationships between the fans and the players. And ultimately, that's really what you want, right? You want your fans to identify, know your players, and have a feeling for what you're doing, not just some, I'm rooting for the old Jerry Seinfeld, I'm rooting for laundry.
Maybe you do it like it's a figure skating competition and you throw out the highest number and the lowest number. You know what I mean? Like it would basically what I just said about quarterbacks should not count against your cap. If quarterbacks are being paid, $50 million, how much more effective could any roster be if that 50 million didn't count towards the cap? So I think there's a lot of ways to solve a problem that the NFL has so much money it should want to solve. The
NFL, the NFL is so backwards.
The NFL owners will never lose a penny on their investment of being an NFL owner. No matter how much money they spend on a team today, they will make more money than they spent on their team when they turn around to sell it. It goes to infinity. It really does. So
to me, in my mind, the NFL has already kind of screwed up because violence is a big part of the game, and the game is violent no matter what rules changes you make. And my whole thing would be like, hey, how about leave the violence in the game, but give lifetime medical to everybody who plays a fucking down?
Yep.
And then you say, is our game violent? Yes, our game's violent, but we take care of our own. And that, to me, instead of having endless meetings and making defensive football nearly impossible, you can't hit the quarterback at the shoulders or above. You can't hit the quarterback at the knees or below. So now you're making these defensive guys like they've got to be like ballerinas out there with their body control.
Wait until you see this drop tackle.
Oh, I know. I mean,
it's become a problem this year.
But I mean, how about instead of making the game something that it isn't, how about just leave the violence in the game, but then take care of your players? I mean, because I talk to the players. They're not sitting there going, oh, God, man, I just hope the NFL comes up with this drop tackle thing because, man, this sport's really dangerous. They understand the danger. What they'd rather have is...
They relish it. They love it.
They'd rather have, hey, guess what? Yeah, it's dangerous, but you know what? I played one down in the NFL. I've got lifetime medical for myself and my family for the rest of my life. Now, people would say, oh, Krug, that's incredibly costly. They have fucking tons of money. They can pay the insurance companies, and they can pay the extra health insurance fees. I mean, they absolutely can afford that, especially with gambling coming in.
So I can fix this whole thing for the NFL right now and save them billions of dollars over the lifetime of the contract. Find an insurance agency to underwrite all of these health plans, and this is now the official medical insurance company of the NFL. You get infinity advertising on the biggest brand in American consumerism. I mean, nothing's bigger than football, and you get to be in every commercial break going forward just by being the official healthcare provider of the NFL. Like they just signed the official, like Applebee's is now the official bar and grill of the NFL.
Eating good in the neighborhood.
First of all, nothing says we've given up quite like kids were going to Applebee's.
Finkelstein here says, Finkelstein shit kid, which was a great name.
Great name.
The NFL should have been lifetime medical decades ago. Yeah. The NFL, it's really interesting in our lifetime because we're right there. We've watched the NFL go from mom and pop to a $30 billion industry right before our eyes. And yet they still have like some things that are like tied to their mom and pop roots, like 53-man rosters, and he was working at Kroger's on Wednesday and he's playing in the NFL on Sunday, and people are like, isn't that cute? It's like, no, it's not cute. It's embarrassing.
Right.
It's seriously embarrassing. You should have 35-man practice squads and grow the number and grow the roster size. And if you want to have 20 games, have 20 games, but spread the violence around, so it's not just on a certain number of guys. Have more guys on the roster. It would make for a better product, and it would eliminate that he worked at Kroger's on Wednesday and he's playing DB on Sunday. I mean, that sounds cute, but that's like a mom and pop roots thing, and it's a $30 billion industry.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense.
By the way, JJ Rader's like, so Damon, you're saying the next Plus meetup won't be at an Applebee's? No, it will not be at an Applebee's. Wouldn't it be great if Finkelstein shit kid got really particular about the way you pronounce that, and he's like, excuse me, it's Finkelstein. Shit kid.
Yes.
Not Finkelstein, it's Finkelstein. Get it right. So there you go. That's pretty much all the 49ers news we could cram into a day where we don't have a lot of news. Again, the news is we're waiting for the draft, and it is a week and 1 day away. Thank the Lord. Larry, we're going to have a wake up on Friday. We will not have a wake up on Monday. I'm coming home from Las Vegas on Monday morning, but we'll be certainly at it the day before the draft. A week from today, that'll be a great wake up for everyone to tune into at 8:45 the day before the draft. And then we'll be on Friday to evaluate what happened in day one and kind of look ahead to day two. So I'm looking forward to both of our wake ups next week. And of course, we got one more this week. I feel like we got to talk a little Warriors. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, one last Niner note.
Okay.
Niner Nation, Kyle Posey just put out an article. The 49ers are hosting USC safety Kalen Bullock today. They're also hosting Utah safety Sione Vaki, and Vaki's going to join me on the Krug Show later this week, and his agent says they've met with him quite a bit. So the Niners are definitely doing their due diligence on the safety crowd, and Vaki is a hot name. He's from Antioch. He played running back at Utah and then switched to safety. Niners like him as a safety, maybe as a return man. And then Bullock is a real good player from USC who's also a safety. So just remember those two names, Kalen Bullock and Sione Vaki. And Vaki's agent told me that the Niners have met with Vaki many, many times. So it sounds like they have a lot of interest in the Utah safety.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's an incomplete portion of the team with injuries to Hufanga, leaving what he looks like in doubt. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're looking at safety. I heard that Cooper DeJean, by the way, I know he's really not a safety. He's more of a corner, had a wildly impressive workout day, and it's basically been promised he's not getting past the Eagles. They love what they've seen out of Cooper DeJean. But again, we're going off of rumor and innuendo. All of this becomes fact in 8 days. Thank goodness. Again, I love the NFL draft, and then I start hating the NFL draft, and then I get upset that the NFL draft is taking too long as it's happening, and then we get to the end of it, and I'm like, okay, now I'm in the mood. Let's go to the second round, and then they wrap it up, and we talk about this on Wednesday.
I think it's awesome reality television. I mean, you're getting little peeks into, to me, it's, if you're an NFL fan, the NFL draft should be almost a must watch. Why? Because there's so many subplots. There's so much player movement and free agency, coaching movement during the coaching cycle, and then all kinds of reports. And now you get a chance to see these players in their own habitats, to me, like, I'll give you an example, Damon. Brock Purdy, when he got selected at the end of Mr. Irrelevant at the end of the draft, I was not excited, but the room of people that were excited for Brock Purdy, and I'm thinking to myself, either these people, this is the tightest family of all time, or maybe this kid's pretty damn good. You know what? Because it was like the reaction to this guy being drafted was like, wow, it was like an
No, that's a
explosion.
family. Of course it was. It's if any
But
family celebrates their kid's
but
birthday, you know what I mean?
yeah, but I mean, there are other situations, especially in the 7th round, where it's just like, you don't necessarily see people going. They went bananas.
Right.
Like they knew that Brock Purdy was more than just a 7th round throwaway pick.
Well, they were thankful for the
They're
opportunity
thankful.
that he now gets, and you can see that. I actually thought that the COVID draft, right, where players weren't invited to New York and they had to have a camera set up in their living room, I thought that was one of the more compelling drafts of all time because again, you just have a window in, and you see
there's
hey,
Belichick's dog.
Right. You are a first-round draft pick, which means by definition you are now a millionaire. Now, be careful with that money because it can all disappear quickly, and you'll find out what being rich really means. But you go from millionaire, and then you look around some of these families' homes, and they're clearly not millionaires. You know what I mean? Like all of this is cheap IKEA furniture everywhere you look. And this is a humble background that this kid is now going to get the opportunity to change his and his family's financial fortune forever. It's incredibly exciting and dramatic. Yeah. Every single kid has imagined getting drafted. The same way you imagine hitting the big free throw or the putt to win the Masters or throwing the touchdown pass that wins the Super Bowl. I think part of that imagining you're a professional athlete now includes the draft process. It's alluring. It's great drama. You're right.
And also seeing Goodell, we saw him in his basement, but Goodell, the way Goodell hugs these guys, I mean, it's just, it's a little over the top. It's a little over the top.
As he hugs them, he's whispering into their ear, every decision that I make during your career probably won't benefit you at all, but good luck, kid.
I'd like one guy to be like, hey, Raj, how about just a handshake, but medical insurance? How about that instead? I'll take a little bit less of a hug and some lifetime insurance.
Back away there, big fellow. We just met.
That would be hilarious if he goes in for the big hug and somebody was like, hey, I like proper distance.
Just straight up Heisman posing, just hand right in the middle of his chest.
Or somebody, he sweetens them. The guys who are there, he's got to go back there and be like, dude, when you come out, I'm giving you the biggest bear hug of all time. And then like somebody like Johnny Newton goes, no, Raj, I'm giving you the biggest bear hug of all time. Because the way you don't see Adam Silver hugging the NBA draft picks like that. And Rob Manfred, I don't even think is in the same universe as the baseball draft.
Right.
Picks.
Adam Silver usually gets like one of the like the reverse
the bro hug, the bro shake or something,
and then the bump on the back. Like when I see you for the first time at training camp, and it's been months since we've actually been together, I'll get you a handshake, a pull in, a one tap on your back, and then release.
Right.
Roger Goodell is up there.
Goodell. It's like the linebacker drill that you see in training camp where you have to hug him and carry him like 3 feet. You gotta tote the running back like 3 feet.
Drill.
Yeah, it's like fire your hands, and keep your feet driving. I mean, that's Goodell.
He's dirty dancing with guys who just got drafted. Look it up, kids. It was a movie. Patrick Swayze.
Who's no longer with us.
Nobody
puts Goodell in the corner.
Speaking of no longer with us, Larry, the Golden State Warriors. It feels like the run officially ended. I won't say, there's no like, it ended at the hands of the Kings. No, it ended at the hands of Father Time. It ended at the hands of the way that Steve Kerr has failed to turn the responsibility of getting through the regular season over to the younger guys to make sure his vets are healthy and got the energy remaining in their tank to get you through a one and done playoff moment. There's a lot of blame to go around, but sure, there shouldn't be any anger. Like the Warriors' life cycle of we matter to this league lasted longer than any other life cycle in Warriors history for sure, and has lasted longer than more championship life cycles have ever lasted. I mean, the Warriors put together a run that is reminiscent of black and white, grainy Boston Celtics footage, Jordan's Bulls, and the San Antonio Spurs with Tim Duncan. You know, that they are in the small handful of greatest teams, greatest few seasons ever strung together of all time, and they should take great pride in that. It's time to move on from Klay Thompson. It just is. And it sucks that it ends like this, but what more could you possibly ask for in terms of what do you got left here than a guy who goes 0 for Sacramento? It hurt watching Klay go 0 for 10 last night. It really did. And you could see it on his face almost. You could see him realizing that this is how it fucking ends. And it's brutal, man.
You know, all good things come to an end. You know, it was a great run. I mean, this was an amazing run. You know, how many fans did the Warriors win over in this period of time? Not just locally, nationally, and internationally,
globally.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, they've brought a lot of new people into their tent. Now we're going to find out, will those people stay or will they leave once once the dynasty is ended? We're going to find out. You know, guys like myself, I love the Warriors from when I was 5-6 years old in the mid 70s. And they were horrendous for 20 years, and still it was a good time, and still it was fun. I mean, you know, if the Giants were bad for 20 years, they wouldn't be fun. If the Niners were bad for 20 years, it wouldn't be fun. But somehow the Warriors,
hey, when the Giants
it was good. It was still fun,
right? When the Giants were really great, we called it torture. So,
yeah, but I mean, it was torture just because it was, it was just nail biting. But as far as like the Warriors created a fun atmosphere when they were shitty, and so I always, I never even dreamt. The NBA just, to me, always felt like the haves and the have-nots, and the Warriors were the have-nots. And many, many years, come watch Kobe and Shaq, come watch Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili. They didn't even market their own team; they marketed their opponents.
Yeah.
I literally high-fived Frank Red when they traded for Larry Hughes. You know, I mean, it's like I've been grinding on the Warriors for years before they were any good. So the fact that not only did they get good, they got great and spectacular.
Right. You went from the NBA equivalent of homeless to Beverly Hills.
Right.
Like that's what the Warriors were able to do. And
so I have great appreciation for it. I mean, I never took the Warriors for granted, their success, because I had so much failure. I witnessed so much failure and so much bad ball. And so, it just felt like they were never possibly ever going to get there. And if you told me that they were going to have this awesome dynasty and win these 4 championships, and, it's like, whoa, I mean, it's amazing.
The greatest pendulum swing in my lifetime of didn't matter, shining example of Camelot, are the New England Patriots, who in my childhood did not matter. The New England Patriots didn't even make the sports section sometimes on Sundays. That's how much they just did not matter to the NFL's greater conversation. And growing up in upstate New York, I mean, I'm closer to the New England Patriots than I am the Buffalo Bills. Oh my God, it was Buffalo Bills, Giants, Jets, Eagles. It was never the New England Patriots. And then everything changed. And they're a model franchise. And that's what the Warriors were. The Warriors were the West Coast Atlanta Hawks. You're never going to matter. You don't matter. We're talking about contraction.
It was even worse than that.
First to go. Like if
it was even worse than that, Damon. It was worse than that because you know the way the NBA is. The teams would roll out west and they would play, let's say, the Sonics on a Friday night and the Warriors on a Sunday and the Blazers on a Tuesday.
Right. Maybe
they would sit there and they would sit their guys, or if they did, this is before the rest, they wouldn't sit their guys, but their guys would only play just, the Celtics rolled in. You didn't get the full game of Bird. You got, he played a little bit. He got a nice sweat going.
Michael Jordan's lowest career scoring average against any team, or I think in any building, was the old arena or against the Warriors. And it wasn't because they did a great job locking down Michael Jordan. It's because that's the least amount of basketball Jordan played in the year. Like Phil Jackson looked at the Warriors and said,
we don't need to.
Fuck?
Yeah,
we can do this blind. We can do this without Michael tonight. We're instead of getting 38, Michael, we're going to give you 30.
Or you got really bad performances because, the guys weren't all that fired up. They're just trying to play the schedule, right? They're just trying to get through it. So and here's the bottom line. You build through the draft. And that's why, the KD thing was uncomfortable for me. This talk this year about Joe saying, hey, let's go get LeBron, very uncomfortable for me. You build through the draft. I mean, all these people said the Warriors bought their title. Fuck that. And go to hell. The Warriors drafted Steph Curry. The Warriors drafted Harrison Barnes. The Warriors drafted Klay Thompson. The Warriors drafted Draymond Green. Don't tell me KD came, but they didn't buy shit.
Right.
Their entire team was drafted and developed.
Andre Iguodala came here because he saw it.
He was a free agent. He was the free agent. But for the most part, you have to draft and develop your way. That's why, OKC's the 1 seed. They drafted and developed, and they made a good trade, for the point guard. But I mean, they basically drafted and developed their team, and that's the way. There are no shortcuts. You have to draft and develop your team. And the Warriors did it. And Don Nelson had a huge hand in that. And Larry Riley obviously got, and Nelly got Steph. Jerry West said, we're not trading Klay for Kevin Love. And Bob Myers had a phenomenal draft, and they got Draymond Green in the second round. And I knew then, I high-fived my kid in the back. My kid was a little kid at that point. And I'm like, hey, we just got Draymond Green in the second round. And I'm high-fiving my kid in the back seat. He has no idea who Draymond Green even is at that point. And it's just, that there are no shortcuts. And now here they are. And there's going to be a lot of speculation and a lot of this and a lot of that. And Chris Mannix, I told you, had a great tweet. And here's his tweet. He says, when Boston reached the end of their run in 2013, it could have kept their team together, tried to squeeze one more run out of Pierce and KG and Rondo in that core. Instead, they offloaded stars to get the draft capital that built them into the team they are today. It's not a hot take to suggest the Warriors should do the same. And I agree with this. And my question to you is, will they do it? Or because, listening to Kerr last night, you just watched old man Klay Thompson announce that he's done, as far as not done, but done as a carrier. And you come back in the post game like he's done incredible things, and we need him back. Well, it's like, if you really feel like these guys all need to be back, then maybe it's time to say goodbye to you too.
Well, look, Kerr is always going to talk about his players glowingly in any press conference, and he knows that Klay's about to hit the market, so he might be trying to increase value. Kerr is always going to do right by how he lands any comments about his players publicly. So I don't begrudge him that. But has to happen
for them to lean into the rebuild.
Klay Thompson cannot be back on this team next year, and if Steve Kerr, it's like we need to take the heroin away from Steve. We need to get him some methadone. We need to wean him off of how he used to think about this team and get him to move on to how he now needs to think about this team. Curry, Draymond, Kuminga, Podziemski, Trace Jackson Davis, Moses Moody, Gary Payton II. You're all back. Everybody else is replaceable. Everybody else is move on from. And, I put Draymond in that category because he still offers the Warriors value. He's still their junkyard dog. They play their best basketball with him, not without him. But holy shit, Larry, there's nobody in the NBA, not a single entity who has done more to fuck up 2 years in a row than Draymond Green. He's done as much as any single player to alter 2 NBA seasons in the wrong direction. The punch of Jordan Poole, which everybody admitted after the fact, really affected the entire year and hung over the cloud like, hung over the team like a cloud. And then Draymond Green getting his 25-game mental break, the absence, it ruined this season too. Draymond is out there for those 25 games. Not only are the Warriors not the 9 seed, they're the 6, the 5, the 4. 25 more good games of the Warriors gets them out of the situation they found themselves in last night. So Draymond, I do. We've got a really complicated relationship. Draymond, I love to hate you. I hate to love you. But, you're essential to what the Warriors do. But motherfucker, it's time to grow up. It really is. Because
well, no, it's time to move on. It's time to move on. He has value. Move him. I don't think he has more value to anyone but the Warriors, though. No, the Lakers would take him. I think you could get some pieces from the Lakers. I mean, here's the way I see it. You got a few pieces to move. The Warriors don't have a lot of moves to make.
I would move Andrew Wiggins, I think, before anybody. It's just 2 seasons of completely uninspired effort, 2 seasons of mysterious, inexplained absences. And for a guy who's got literally like more talent in his body than anybody on the court tonight, there's a reason why this guy was the number 1 overall pick. And I hate to say this, he's got more talent than most of us will ever dream of. He's got abilities that should make him a superhero, but unfortunately he is wired like a basketball pussy.
Who are you talking about?
Andrew Wiggins.
Oh, Andrew Wiggins. He's just coasting. This is what happens when you have $200 million in the bank. That's what he's got. He $200 million.
He got that. Andrew Wiggins has always had the spectacular abilities, kind of a pussy. Like that's been his reputation since high school.
He just drifts. He's got to go. He's got to go. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you got Pajemski and you got Kuminga and you got Trace Jackson Davis and Steph, and then that's it. Everybody else can go. And should go. I mean, they should move off from Green. Why? Because Green still is a tradable candidate, tradable commodity. They don't have anything to trade. I mean, they don't have any picks. They've got a super expensive roster. I mean, they've got to trade. They've got to make some trades, and they've got to get some assets. It's time for them to build assets and take a step back. And then you got to ask Steph, does he want to be part of that? Does he want to be part of that? He has earned the right to make that call. And if he wants to be part of it, great. And if he doesn't want to be part of it, that's okay too.
Right. How Steph Curry ends his career will be a mutually agreed upon conversation. There's no, we're trading you, Steph, and he finds out about that transaction. He is.
But he doesn't have you can't just say Steph. It's not just about, himself. To this point, I think Steph controlled everything as far as like nobody moved without Steph. I mean, really, but it's not always right to listen to the players. I mean, if you listen to Steph and Draymond and Clay, they wanted Avery Bradley instead of GP2. Well, so the players don't always know.
Look, you
got to hear your players. You just don't have to listen to your players.
There are 2 forks in the road that had they gone in the other direction, this hadn't reached the screeching halt that it feels like it reached on Tuesday night. Had Kevin Durant just stayed and not listened to Twitter to dictate his career, and had the James Wiseman pick either A, worked out, or B, flipped for veteran help around Steph Curry and company, that would have been maybe the difference. Getting back to your Chris Mannix tweet, he is right. It's time to move on. But let's not even try to put what the Boston Celtics had anywhere on the same shelf of what the Golden State Warriors.
I don't think he is either.
One title.
No, I get it. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. But I mean, it still doesn't change the essence of what he's saying.
No, but they also found the dumbest dance partner on the dance floor in the Nets to give them all those assets for guys who are clearly at the end of their careers. So you need to find a stupid dance partner if you're the Warriors to oversell and get rid of, starting with Andrew Wiggins, to see what you can get back from him. Because Andrew Wiggins is just still alluring enough to have some dumb GM fall for the.
He'll be easy to move. He's going to be easy to move.
Well, I think if it was easier to move, they would have done it at this year's deadline. I don't think there was much of a market for Andrew Wiggins when it was actually.
Yeah, but you got to remember he's got at 24 million or whatever he's making, he's got a big contract, but not an enormous contract. There's somebody. I'm not saying you're going to get awesome players for him, but I'm saying you're going to get. There's an Andrew Wiggins equivalent somewhere in this league. Somebody who's making 25 million, who they're tired of. The guy may be a pain in the ass who they trade for, but they'll find a match there. I'm not worried about that. It's can you find somebody who wants to hit the reset and will take Chris Paul for 30 million and give you real players? Is there somebody that actually thinks that Draymond Green can be useful? I think the Lakers might. And I saw Marcus Thompson was like, I think, Klay Thompson's 0 for 10 is going to help him come back. It's like, I don't want him back. I don't want him back. I mean, it's like,
dude, did you watch that game last night, Marcus? Klay, the reason why there are nothing but wide open threes all over the court for the team, Klay doesn't close out on anybody. He can't move. Like, it's great that Klay's still got a decent shooting percentage, all things said and done. It's great that Klay Thompson is averaging like 17 points a game, which isn't easy to do in the NBA, but he's given up 20 the other night. He's given up 20 the other way. I mean, he really is. He is a traffic cone defensively for a guy whose real value in his career was predicated on the three-point shot falling and him being able to guard the other team's best player. He can't even guard the other team's slowest player at this point.
They need to make a series of moves that collect them some young assets and some draft picks, and they need to get back in the draft, and they need to, the one thing about the Warriors that is a positive is that we're in an era where there's, 60 draft picks in a draft. Let's say there's 18 good players in the draft. Those players don't go 1 through 18. They go 1 through 6, and then 9 through 12, and then 22 through 25, and 42 through 43. It's like they're scattered. It's a speculative draft, which is how the Warriors got TJD and Podziemski in the last draft, because the best players don't always go at the top of the draft. We talked about this last night. There's 5, 6, 7 players that are projected to go in round 2. I think Baylor Shireman is going to be a very good NBA 2-guard shooter.
Look,
kind of like a modern day Klay Thompson in some ways. He's that great of a shooter. He's an amazing shooter coming out of Creighton. He's projected to go like 56th or something like that in the draft. Now, when draft day rolls around in June, we'll find out where he goes. But I'm just saying, if you can handicap the draft and have an idea of who can play and who can't play, and you got great scouts, and I think the Warriors, I think you got to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially after last year, the way they got those two guys. If they can get some picks, they can unearth some rotation players. You're not going to get stars until you get into the lottery, probably, or but I mean, they're going to have to be creative. And I just think my whole message would just be, be optimistic, because the draft is a crapshoot and they've handicapped it well up to this point. Be optimistic, because Dunleavy seems like he might be a better executive than he was a player, which he was the 3rd pick overall. And that's kind of encouraging. And then Joe will spend the money. Joe's proven he'll spend the money. And then it's just about, find some homes for Draymond and talk to Steph. And if Steph, I'm interested to see what Steph's going to say. I think we all assume that Steph absolutely wants to be here, but he absolutely wants to be here with his guys. But if you start saying, hey, you know what? We're not bringing back Klay Thompson. We're trading Draymond Green. He may just say, you know what? it's been a great run here, guys. I'm open to moving as well. And then that might not be the worst thing. It really might not. But they're at a point now where stop trying to win and start building, because you're not, don't tell me about LeBron. Don't tell me about
in that build. You can find the winning in that build.
Stop trying to win next year.
We'll get better. And look, if there's the other thing that we definitely know here too is that NBA GMs, a lot of them are just really bad. Like, they're so busy looking for perfect that they'll let really good pass them by all the time. That's how Trayce Jackson-Davis fell to the final. The problem with Trayce, so he doesn't have a shot. He's not a shooter. He doesn't shoot the three. And he is, a 4-year player. So that means he's older than we desire. He was basically the best player at Indiana for 4 years, and he leaves as one of the school's all-time everything record holders. Like, you can't overlook that player. It's not like he's coming from fucking Creighton. You know what I mean? Like, if you are one of the all-time Indiana block, rebound, point leaders, you have done something in your college career that indicates you could do something at the next level too. A whole bunch of GMs said, just a little too old for us, so we're just going to, gotta have a guy who can shoot a corner three, so can't have that. You can have that. You can have a fundamentally sound player still on the low blocks, even in the modern NBA.
NBA GMs are so enamored by springiness and upside that they choose springiness and upside over real basketball skill.
Yeah.
And that's where the Warriors came in and said, you know what? We're not going to go Cam Whitmore, who jumps out of the gym and can jam. We're going to go with the skill and competitiveness and fire of Brandon Pajemski. They were proven correct. Look how many players went in front of Trayce Jackson-Davis. Trayce Jackson-Davis, to me, basketball players are the easiest to scout. It's all there for you. You're not projecting 10 years down the line like a baseball scout. There's no, you can see everybody's skill.
Give me dogs. Give me guys who play their dicks off. That's what I want.
I don't even care about that. I just want guys with real skill. I mean, Trayce Jackson-Davis had real skills. He averaged 20 a game in the Big Ten. He could score inside. He could set a pick. He could block shots. He could rebound, and he can pass. So, the last thing to come in baseball is like power for a hitter. The last thing to come in NBA basketball is shooting for most people. You're shooting because you're going to shoot. You're going to put up way more reps as a pro than you ever did in college. So your shooting's going to get better. So they took a player who was everything except a shooter, and he wasn't a non-shooter because he has no shot. He was a non-shooter because Indiana decided to utilize him that way because they had other guys who could shoot.
By the way,
he was disciplined. He was disciplined enough to play in their scheme and do what their coach wanted him to do. But he's got upside as a scorer too, and he showed it in the pre-draft workouts that he had, upside as a shooter. And the Warriors found him at 57.
Watch Trayce Jackson-Davis come back next year with a corner three. He adds a little something to his game every year. The baby hook that wasn't there his sophomore year was there his junior year. Better left-handed his offhanded his senior year than he was his junior year. Trayce takes these significant steps forward, and you can see it happening. Watch him come back with a corner three.
Yeah, no, he's a good. They got something there, and what I don't want to see is I don't want to see them move any of their young pieces trying to chase yesterday. I want them to forget about that plan and go into a painful plan, which is saying goodbye to your Draymond Greens, Klay Thompsons, and if need be, Steph Curry's, to turn the page.
By the way, great quote here from Sporticus in the chat saying, prioritizing cake over frosting is the blueprint for every successful draft, and there's too many GMs who get enamored with the frosting. It's a very good way to say it. If we wanted to live in a cake analogy, that is a very good way to explain how NBA GMs.
We got this one too. Mike Nichols says, I love how Larry thinks he's always right and everyone else is wrong. Mike, you're wrong.
I was talking to Tate. I was talking to Tom. Larry's a really good guy, but he comes across as a little arrogant. He presents all of his knowledge as if he has the answer, and everyone else only has questions. Larry, how come you just? Why do you think you know so much? What's wrong with you?
Ralph, it's funny, but I think Lowry is arrogant. I find him arrogant. But I will say this. He did say the Kings would wipe the floor with the Warriors last night. So maybe he's onto something. Maybe we ought to listen to Lowry a little bit more.
My favorite criticism of my career, and I'm sure you ran into this too, because we both hosted the same show for a very long time, and we did it by ourselves when we were hosting Sports Phone. My favorite criticism of why I don't like you, Damon, is you are in love with the sound of your own voice. I would be criticized. I'm the only fucking host in the studio. If I stop talking and there isn't a commercial break, the show's over. Like, what are you talking about? I'm in love with my own voice. I'm a solo host. What do you Larry, you are in love with the sound of your own voice while you're talking to yourself.
There was a sign in this old KMBR studio that right by the door. It said, "Just keep talking."
That's
just
before I got there. That was taken down before I walked in the studio. Just keep talking.
Just keep talking. There was a TV guy who filled in, and I won't name him, and he was an ex-athlete, but he was a TV guy that filled in, and he got to the commercial break, and I'm in the control room, and he's like, "That's all I got." Like, the producer's like, "Well, talk about this, talk about that." He's like, "You don't understand. That's all I got. I've already talked about everything. I've already talked about that already. I've already do
it again. Talk about all that shit again. We got 2 more hours here, buddy."
He's like, "Dude, keep it rolling. Keep it rolling." But yeah.
By the way, you know what sign KNBR needs now is a sign that says, "Just keep talking about sports." That's the sign that they need.
Yeah. A half hour and drive time about milk ain't cutting it. But what do we know?
Yeah, what do we know? We've both been wildly successful and #1 in our time slots for years. What do we know?
I won't even say it.
All right. Hey, subscribe. Everyone, thank you so much. I'm going to do a little Warriors post-mortem coming up at 11 o'clock on the Plus, on the Damon Bruce channel, on Damon Bruce Plus. So hopefully you see me over there. I know you got a lot coming up, Larry, in the next week leading up to the draft. I'm looking forward to all of your coverage. But thank everyone for watching. And we're about to get ourselves into one of the most season-defining weeks of football we will have outside of the regular season weeks of football. The NFL draft is a monster fork in the road for what this Kyle Shanahan era will look like. This is the last best chance they're going to have to win under the Brock Purdy economy that they get to enjoy right now. So more than any other year, more even than last year, 2024, it's Super Bowl or bust, and they better make the right picks next Thursday to help them get there. Larry, That's all I got. I'm like that TV guy. No, I'm done talking. I got nothing left. I'm done. I'm done. Right.
I already said that. Here we go. Greg Argisi says, "Guys, is Ladd McConkey Phil's kid?" I believe it is. Phil McConkey, the former New York Giant. I think his kid is Ladd McConkey.
There is nobody, maybe
I'd have to look that up though,
in the history of football who was brought off the field with the power of smelling salts more often than Phil McConkey, right? Phil McConkey took a holy shit, I think he might be dead hit twice a game. and he would always bounce up and keep going. Respect to Phil McConkey.
I'll say this for Phil McConkey. Didn't he have a couple Super Bowl rings?
He sure does.
Yeah. Let me double check that because I don't want to give
Wait a minute. Does
incorrect
Phil McConkey have a couple Super Bowl or just one?
Well, wasn't he on the 80? I thought he was on the 86 and the 90 Giants. Let's see.
One-time Super Bowl champion, Larry. One
time.
84 games for Phil McConkey, 67 catches. Oh, how about this? How many, just without looking, how many touchdowns do you think Phil McConkey has in his career?
18.
Just like his kid in his final year at Georgia, 2.
He's
Phil
got
McConkey
two
has
touchdowns.
2 professional career touchdowns.
It's not Phil McConkey's kid. It's not. McConkey grew up. The lad McConkey grew up. His father is Benji McConkey, who was a star quarterback in high school at Dalton High School. And his brother is Hinton McConkey, played quarterback for the University of West Georgia, but he is not related to Phil McConkey.
When I was at IU, I knew this girl named Lisa Conkey who was from Chicago. And if we had to send down like the most Chicago girl of all time to you win the Miss Chicago pageant, it would have been McConkey, or it would have been Lisa Conkey. By the way, it's a great name for a girl. You just go Conkey. What's going on, Conkey? She was so cool. What a great chick. She was a great Bears fan, great Bulls fan. Like all girls from Chicago who would be representative of the city. She had an extra 30 pounds on her. She was just an awesome chick. She was the kind of chick that you wanted to not like hook up with, but hang out with. She was awesome.
My favorite woman of all time is the late Carol Kruger, my mother, who was also a daughter of Chicago.
There you go.
From Chicago. She grew
a lot
up,
of good people.
She grew up off the Ryan Expressway on near Ford City, and I miss her greatly.
Of course.
Ricky Williams' topic of who has a better draft between Washington and the Niners is underrated. Definitely adds more hype around the draft. If you're a fan of Adam and Lynch, who has the better draft, fellas? Well, I think that's another interesting little wrinkle in this thing. Who was the key to the Niners personnel? Is it Lynch and their scouts, or was it Adam Peters or Rand Carthon or some of the guys who have left in the last couple of years? So
hopefully for the Niners, all of Adam Peters' choices were the guys who didn't work out, and all of John Lynch's choices are the guys who have.
Well, the only thing I do know is they claim that Adam Peters banged the table for Ambry Thomas, and Ambry Thomas has been kind of an enigma. So maybe Lynch is the key, but I don't know. I do have confidence in the Niners.
Who was the guy who banged the table for Trey Lance? That's the guy who really fucked a lot of things up. Who's that guy?
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. That would be a great question at the presser. Yeah, quick question: who was it that was super into Trey Lance between you guys?
Can we bring this back up here, please? Could we talk about
the
this
look that you would get from Shanahan and Lynch if you asked that question at the presser? Hey, by the way, just clarification on past drafts. Who was the rah-rah Trey Lance guy in your guys' room? Well, we make all these decisions unilaterally.
Right. Yeah. Victory is 1,000 fathers. Defeat is an orphan.
Exactly. We do all these things together. And it was we succeed together, we fail together, and the nervousness would just be awesome. Just to see the nervousness.
We succeed together, we fail together. Whenever we do a show that doesn't have a huge viewership number, I'm like, Larry and I, we fail together sometimes. We succeed together at other times.
Blame Kev with the thumbnail.
It was definitely Kevin's fault. He took all that peyote at Coachella, and this is what we got.
Dale in the chat with just a bang the table. ...
Bang the table. By the way, I asked Kevin best band that he saw, and he said he actually did more like EDM DJ stuff and sets than he did see a band. But he said that the best band he saw was no doubt Gwen Stefani, still throwing heat.
Wow,
there you go.
It's a senior tour. It's like
Gwen Stefani's got to be 45, 50 years old.
JJ Raiders says, Larry, are you related to Rex Kruger? Yes. Rex and I that's my twin brother. No, I have no idea who Rex Kruger is. I used to get that a lot as a kid. Hey, because there's a picture of ex-Niner tackle Charlie Kruger at Levi's. And my dad used to get that all the time. Are you related to Charlie Kruger? Charlie Kruger? Like, no, no relation. Now I get this Freddie. I always get the Freddie Kruger stuff.
Right.
This is a good one too. From Jim Define.
Yeah,
Mariucci would get blamed for Lance.
it was Mariucci.
It was Mariucci.
I wasn't in the organization at that point, Lowry and Damon, but I'll tell you, I wrote Trey Lance's name down in an envelope, and I put it in my desk drawer, and I looked at it, and I said to myself, "Damn, Trent, if this kid had just torn an ACL, you could have drafted him." It's easy for guys like you, Lowry, and Damon, you radio guys, you know-it-all guys, to question things after the fact. It's harder for guys like me, real football guys, to make draft choices in real time. I'll just say that.
I got nothing. I'm done.
That's my Trent Ballkey. All right. Wait a second. We got this one, last one here. From Blood Moon, he says, Larry and Damon, please consider going live during the draft to gain your real-time reaction.
How about this, Larry? Why don't we
we could do the draft is so freaking long, and it goes over, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, that we could do we're not going to do the whole draft or anything, but we could do.
How about this? If the Niners
we could do one day or one night or one round, or we could do whatever. We can do
Larry,
whatever we want.
Niners make a trade. Let's go live immediately, and when they get to the pick, let's go live.
So if the Niners make a trade, you're saying,
yeah,
then
all of a sudden the
we'll
Niners
go live
are picking at 18. So holy shit, we're going, they're on the board. Let's go live right now. Let's
we can cherry pick a couple of maybe Thursday night round one things.
Yeah.
We'll talk it over. We'll figure it out.
We will.
Last year I did videos on every guy the Niners drafted, within 2-3 minutes of them drafting. And the videos got ridiculous traction. I'll probably do a little bit of that. I'm not sure if I'm going to go down to the facility and hang out there so I could go talk to Lynch and Shanahan after the thing, or if I want to watch it from home I've got this whole setup here with computers and TVs and all that.
You're better equipped to cover it from right where you are than you're probably.
I know, but as part of me wants to go talk to Lynch and Shanahan a little bit too. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes, but we'll definitely cover the drafts top to bottom, and we'll definitely do some stuff together. And then, there's going to be there'll be a lot of meat on the bone. There'll be a lot of meat on the bone. And I do like to go on right as it happens because, I do have all this wasted knowledge in my head on all these guys. And this is a good way to use that wasted knowledge, is to just fire away right away.
And show off.
And just be like, hey, look what I know about a 7th round pick that nobody's heard of. I do have a video coming out, guys, that I would encourage all of you to see. I put together the 12 super sleepers of the NFL draft. And Kev right now is going into the archives looking for video footage to edit into the video so that when I'm talking about these guys, you actually see them on the screen. It's going to be one of the best videos that I've done. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours digging down to find 12 super sleepers. And
not
when
a super sleeper.
Yeah, well, I've seen McMell and Field Yates did a thing the other day, a podcast, and they're like, oh, these sleepers. And they're like, well, this guy's probably going to go at the end of round 3. That's not a fucking sleeper. A sleeper is not somebody who goes in the first 5 rounds. A sleeper is somebody who goes in round 6, 7, or is undrafted. And a super sleeper is either somebody in that category or somebody that's not even in any draft guide. That's literally, you're not going to see this guy's name anywhere.
Steve says we should have a Damon Krug draft party at a bar.
Ooh.
Go to the Dubliner, get all set up, West Portal.
Ooh. Maybe what do you think of a Friday? What do you think of Friday night for round 2 and 3? That might not be bad. Friday night.
Let's talk about it.
It starts at 4 and ends at 7. That's kind of right in your wheelhouse for the kids.
Let's talk about it. You and I got a little talking to do, Larry.
Okay, we'll talk it over. We're going to talk it. We're going to freaking talk it over.
Talk to me. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Purdy was a sleeper.
He was a sleeper. Did he make the super sleeper pick last year? Was he on Kuiper and McShay's thing last year? Did anyone talk about him before? No.
Mark Graves.
12 super sleepers sounds like the OJ jury. Outside of Steve versus Joe, my favorite topic ever was OJ Simpson. I couldn't get enough of it. I would have done 4 hours a day on OJ. As a matter of fact, I tried, and Agnew came and told me, lay off. Krug, you're so cute. You get all excited about the draft. And, I want to talk about my Miata. You want to talk about the draft. That's where we're different.